Spoilers for the Young and the Restless. Welcome back to our channel. Today is a fantastic day to dive deep into the drama, and we have an absolute roller coaster of an episode to discuss. Grab a snack, settle in, and let's get right into the madness. I literally cannot even process what I just watched. I am sitting here typing this up at 2 a.m. because I am so incredibly worked up, and I desperately need to get this out of my system before I explode. I mean, can we talk about this? I can't believe they did that. I absolutely cannot believe that after everything, after all the history and all the drama, they actually just killed off Nikki Newman like a dog in the dirt. Am I the only one who is completely losing their mind over this? Because let me tell you, I have been watching this show for years. I've been watching since 2015, and I have seen some truly wild, unhinged storylines in my time. However, this is without a doubt the worst and most devastating act they have ever committed against a legacy character. Nikki Newman, the golden boy of the Newman family, the man who has survived plane crashes, building collapses, and literal psychopaths, is currently foaming at the mouth and being thrown into a shallow grave by a woman he met 5 minutes ago. I am screaming at my screen right now. I am so mad, so confused, and honestly, just so heartbroken. Wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take a breath. Let me back up and try to explain this logically, even though my hands are literally shaking on the keyboard. Okay, back to the point. We all know Nick has been spiraling. We have all watched him hit absolute rock bottom over the last few weeks. The addiction storyline has been so incredibly heavy, and watching him check himself out of rehab against medical advice was just a massive red flag. I mean, his parents, Victor and Nikki, are literally at the ranch celebrating their reunion and planning a romantic trip to Venice and a vow renewal, and their son is out here rotting in a dingy, disgusting motel room with only 4 packets of drugs left to his name and the psychological torture. The writers have been doing this thing where Matt Clark is haunting Nick's drug-fueled nightmares, and it has been terrifying to watch. I mean, remember that dream sequence? Matt basically hijacked Nick's brain and forced him to watch his entire family fall apart because of his addiction. He took him to the shadow room, and Nick saw Sharon passed out on a table. Then Mariah was screaming at him, telling him he convinced Sharon to take the pills, and then Mariah literally morphed into Cassie's ghost, asking Nick if her death meant nothing to him. You guys, I was actually crying, and it didn't stop there. The nightmare kept going. Nick saw Adam and Chelsea screaming that Connor found his drug stash and died. He saw his mother, Nikki, drinking a double vodka and telling him she was ashamed of him, while Victor called him a complete disgrace. He even saw Victoria telling him he was running away from being a hero. By the time Nick woke up in that sweaty, gross motel bed, his brain was completely shattered. He was so vulnerable, so broken, and so desperate for any kind of human connection that didn't involve guilt or shame. As a result, Nick is basically a sitting duck whenever Marie Kirkland, a mysterious individual, knocks on the door. She tells him she's staying in the room next door and heard him crying and screaming from his nightmare. She asked him if he wants to share his burden. And honestly, at first, I thought this was going to be a good thing. I know some people are loving this dark, gritty direction, but personally, I was hoping Marie was going to be an angel in disguise. Maybe an undercover sponsor or someone who could talk him off the ledge. But no, because this is Genoa City and nobody is ever who they seem to be. Nick and Marie start talking. It is this really deep, probing conversation. Nick is spilling his guts to this total stranger because he feels like he can't talk to his family. He feels like a failure to Victor, a disappointment to Nikki, and a danger to Sharon and the kids. He is carrying the weight of the world. And Marie is just sitting there, listening, nodding, and playing the role of the perfect, understanding confidant. Nick is looking at her like she is a lifeline. He thinks he has finally found a friend, someone who just gets it without judging him. And then the massive, horrifying plot twist drops. Marie reveals that she is also an addict. She is not a savior. She is an enabler, and not just any enabler, but a completely twisted, psychotic one. She tells Nick that she understands his pain, and that she has something that will make it all go away. She tells him she is ready to let him try some brand new forms of drugs. And Nick, completely blinded by his addiction and his desperate need for comfort, is actually thrilled. He is thrilled. I was screaming at the TV, "Nick, run! Get out of there. Call Adam. Call anyone." But he doesn't, because Nick is so far gone. He just leans right into the disaster. Marie pulls out this pill. She calls it a painkiller. She looks him dead in the eye with this sickly sweet, entirely too calm expression, and tells him to try it, promising him that it will get him incredibly high and numb all the horrible thoughts in his head. And Nick, trusting this woman he has known for maybe an hour, takes the pill. I literally had to pause the episode because I felt sick to my stomach. Remember when they tried this kind of dark, fatal attraction storyline with other characters? Yeah, it didn't work then either, but this is a million times worse because it is Nick Newman. The moment he swallowed that pill, the entire vibe of the scene shifted. The lighting felt darker. The silence in the room was deafening. And you just knew something catastrophic was about to happen. And then the nightmare became reality. It wasn't a painkiller. It was poison. It was a literal, lethal poison pill. Within seconds, Nick starts reacting. He starts thrashing around on the bed. His eyes roll back. He is gasping for air, clutching his throat, and looking at Marie with this expression of absolute heartbreaking betrayal. He realizes in his final moments that this friend he trusted just murdered him. He starts violently seizing on the floor. And the most gruesome, horrifying part, he starts foaming at the mouth. I am sorry, but since when did this show become a horror movie? It was truly traumatizing to witness Joshua Morrow, an actor who has devoted his life to this show for decades, thrashing on a filthy hotel floor and foaming at the mouth. I could not believe my eyes. Nick Newman, the man who built Crimson Lights, the man who loved Sharon with all his heart, the man who fought so hard to be a good father to Noah and Summer, is dying in a cheap motel because of a random psycho named Marie. But wait, it gets even worse because you'd think Marie would panic and call 911, right? Even if it was an accidental overdose, a normal person would call an ambulance. But Marie doesn't call anyone. She watches him stop breathing. She watches him go completely still. And then she goes into full-blown panic mode. But not the kind of panic where you try to save someone, the kind of panic where you try to cover up a murder. She dug a hole, a literal hole. The episode shows her dragging his lifeless, heavy body out into the dark. I don't even know where they are. Maybe the woods behind the motel or some abandoned lot. But she literally grabs a shovel and starts frantically digging a grave in the dirt. She is sweating. She is panting. And she is preparing to dump Nick Newman into a hole in the ground like he is a piece of trash. I am so incredibly angry I can barely see straight. Why is she doing this? Who is this cruel, heartless woman? Why did she kill Nick? I am sitting here racking my brain trying to figure out what the writers are playing at. Is Marie working for someone? Did Matt Clark hire her to finish the job? For months, Matt has been attempting to ruin Nick's life by luring him into addiction, manipulating his family, and making Nick believe he is insane. It makes perfect sense that Matt would hire a hit woman to pose as an addict, gain Nick's trust, and poison him. But then again, what if it's someone else? What if it's Victor? No. Wait. That is absurd. Victor would never actually kill his own son. Victor might be a ruthless, manipulative tyrant who does terrible things in the name of protecting his family. However, he adores Nick. He would never order a hit on him. So, it has to be Matt. Or maybe Marie is just a completely random serial killer who preys on vulnerable addicts in motels. I mean, if that is the case, that is the most lazy, insulting writing I have ever seen in my entire life. I just keep thinking about the fallout. Think about Sharon. Sharon is going to absolutely lose her mind. She and Nick have this deep, unbreakable bond. Even when they aren't together, they are soulmates. When Sharon finds out that Nick died alone, scared, and poisoned in a motel room, she is going to break down completely. And Noah just moved to Los Angeles with Sienna to escape the trauma of Genoa City, and now he is going to get a phone call that his dad was murdered and buried in a shallow grave. It is too much. It is just way too much tragedy for one family. And what about Victor and Nikki? They are literally at the ranch right now, planning a trip to Venice, popping champagne, and celebrating their renewed love. Nikki just got her bandages off and is dealing with the terror of potentially being blind for